Everyone has a good story to tell, and you know it is a good story when the person leans in and says, "See, what had happened was," and then tells the story.
This podcast provides those opportunities to tell those types of stories in education. The stories will be from the good, the bad, and everything in between. We wanted to do this podcast to showcase stories in education and to give flowers to educators who deserve recognition for their excellence.
Our guests will feature parents, students, teachers, administrators, and just about anyone who is involved in education. These stories will inspire you, challenge you, and help you to reflect on your practice of education, whether it be from the inside of the classroom or outside.
If you have a good story to tell, we'd love to hear it. Email us at contact@andredoughty.org. We'd love to have you or your story on a future episode. See What Had Happened starts now. Welcome to See What Had Happened, where we hear stories in education from the good, the bad, and everything in between. We're your co-hosts, Danielle and Andre Daughty. If this is your first episode tuning in, welcome.
What's up?
If you've been a part of the family since season 1, welcome back.
What's up, family?
Hey, we're on all podcasting networks. And if you want to see the show versus listen to the show, follow us on YouTube. Wherever you watch, make sure that you click the like button, subscribe, and share it out to all of your friends.
And we want you to make sure that you go and click that like button, subscribe, because the algorithms are going to algorithm. It's up to you all to like it, subscribe, hit the comments, all those things. And that pushes our show up where other people can see it and explore. If not, we stay towards the bottom. And so one of our goals this year is just that, to get exposed to more stories and be more out in the open in different podcasting areas. And this is where you come and help us. So, hey, click on that thing, friends.
All right, today we have a special guest joining us, Jameka Lewis. You may recognize this name as she was our sponsor last year for our Sprout Out segment. Jameka Lewis is the senior librarian at the Blair Caldwell African American Research Library, a branch location within the Denver Public Library System. As the senior librarian, she desires to educate the world on Black history and the importance of sharing accurate stories, whether it be through DEI workshops and seminars or speaking engagements around the country. Jameka strongly advocates for everyone to learn ways to conduct research that will allow them to verify and trust sources that they come across. Please welcome Jameka Lewis. Hey, Jameka.
Hey, y'all. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Super excited.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here. So we gave you the bio. Tell us what we missed out. Who is Jameka Lewis?
That is so flattering, I guess. But I do also have to preface this whole thing by saying any opinions expressed are mine and are not of that of the Denver Public Library System. I always put that caveat out there. Don't be calling my job because I'll upset you because I said something. I work for the city, so I like my benefits. Please don't come for me.
Has helped Jameka keep her job, people?
Please. But all opinions expressed for this episode are my own and do not reflect that of my workplace.
I love it.
But for the bio, I mean, it pretty much summed me up pretty well. I'm a librarian. I say librarian extraordinaire. I'm a historian. I love Black history and culture. I love sharing out what I learn. The other day, someone said to me, "Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Your knowledge is so vast." And my response was, my knowledge is actually pretty sparse, which makes me good at what I do, because I'm always wanting to ingest more and more knowledge so that I can share with everyone else. So, I mean, that's my passion. I want to equip people with knowledge. I want to show people how to find accurate knowledge and share accurate information. I mean, that's really what my life's work is and what I think my calling is to do.
I am often very jealous of you because the artifacts that you find and you get to hold and touch. Those are the ones that I want. Give me an artifact that has just blown you away so far. Something that you've seen either from your time when you were working at Langston or even now with Denver.
It's really hard to pick just one. So that would be
give me several real quick then. Go ahead.
I think the ones that have made the most impact on me First, when I was at Langston, we acquired an African artifact collection. It was around 155 sculptures from different tribes in Africa. And so to be the person to hold those and clean them and preserve them. And later on, I actually partnered with the English department, and their first year students use those artifacts as the basis for their essays throughout the semester. So to take, African sculptures from acquisition to implementation in a curriculum, like that was really transformative for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's number one. Since I've been in Denver, there are two things that have completely blown my mind. The first, I've actually gotten a hold a letter that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote to a local businessman here. So of course I flipped out, like, what in the world?
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and then, so in our special collections, we have a collection of manumission and traveling papers from a man named Robert Smith. And he was born into slavery. He ended up purchasing his freedom and purchased his family. And so, in order to, be able to travel freely, he had to carry his manumission papers, which were the official documents filed with the court in Virginia, to prove that he was a free man. And then they had to carry traveling papers. So basically, any white person could come up to a Black person and say, "Are you free? Are you a slave?" If you didn't have those papers on you, you were sent off. You were arrested and sent to wherever plantation they wanted to send you. So in our archives, we have actual manumission papers from the early 1800s. And just seeing those and touching those and understanding the immenseness of that history. I frequently go back to that collection and pull that collection when I feel discouraged at work, when I feel like what I'm doing doesn't matter, when I just want to give up librarianship and this profession, because it's very hard on people of color. It's very hard on Black people. I'm not even gonna say people of color. I'm saying Black people. It's very hard. Librarianship is not easy for us. So when I have those moments where I want to just give up, I pull the Robert Smith manumission papers and think about how he didn't give up. He worked so he could purchase his family. His family ended up moving to Denver and had successful businesses, and he was able to travel around the country. So if he can do that, then I can stick with what I know my calling and my purpose is.
So, Jameka, you mentioned the difficulties that you experienced being a Black librarian. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So librarianship currently is around 87 to 90% white. And with that, it's also like 95, 96% women. So when you work in a profession that is majority white women, you come across a lot of microaggressions, you come across a lot of power struggles. And to me, it doesn't make sense. And the reason I say that is because librarianship is the information profession. So you have people who work in so many different positions where we have access to information and resources that other people don't have. So if this is the case, then why are we still fighting against systemic racism and inequality within our profession? To me, it seems like if you know these things are happening and we've mentioned that these things are happening and we're telling you what they are, we're giving you terminology, we're conducting trainings for you to see, hey, this is why this isn't right. Why is it still so prevalent? And no one can ever answer that question. I mean, we have access to so many different resources that explain basically your bad behavior and the impacts of it. And if a librarian we're trained in information, we're trained in information retrieval, we're trained in information behavior, we're trained in human behavior as it relates to information. So if we have all these skills, we have this knowledge base, then why is it that people can't see the inequities and
Hmm.
aren't actively fighting against them. So
Yeah.
that's really what makes it difficult. I
That
mean,
is
I
so
bet
interesting.
you can interview 100 Black librarians, and all 100 of them will tell you of a negative experience they've had while in the profession.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's where the fight continues and the journey continues, and you stay in that good trouble. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
All right. So set up this story for us. The story that you're about to share. Is this you as an educator? Is this you as a student? Go ahead and set the story up for us.
So this is me as an educator. A lot of people may not frame librarians as educators, but we are. I
Absolutely.
mean, we ingest information and then we share it with the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what we do. We may not do it in a formalized classroom every day, although there are librarians who do that, especially at the academic level.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this story is me as an educator.
Since it's the title of the show and we feel a good story coming, you've got to start off with see what had happened was. So, what happened, Jameka?
Lord, what had happened was this. So, with the advancement of anti CRT or critical race theory legislation happening around the country, that is starting to affect libraries.
Hmm.
And it's starting to affect libraries because parents are asking libraries to remove certain titles. And most of those titles are by Black authors.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. So, here in Colorado, I won't name the library district, but here in Colorado recently, the board. So, let me explain library structure. So, for public libraries, like where I work, we have usually there's one person, they'll call it a city librarian or librarian. That's the person who is over all the libraries in the system.
Okay.
But that person can't just unilaterally make decisions like unanimously. So they have a governing body, which is usually a board. It'll be a library board, a commission, something like that. Just the same as it does like with nonprofits. It's kind of similar. So here in Colorado, there was a board of a library another county in Colorado who decided that certain programs should not be framed in a way that would cause division
Hmm.
or be divisive. So they decided to target programs that had the terms woke. So one of the programs was called Read Woke, which is actually a national library program. And that program encourages literacy, especially to younger people concerning social justice, racial injustice, things like that. So this board decided that the librarians in this area needed to change the programming to not be divisive
Hmm.
or to not cause friction or to, as they put, reflect the values of the library system. So my questions are, and always have been, number one, what are the values of your system
Mm-hmm.
if you can't openly promote conversation that doesn't always necessarily affect the majority population of your system? That's my question number one. Question number two is, who are you to decide that talking about racial injustice or all these social issues is problematic,
Right.
especially if you've never been affected by these things?
That part.
My next question would be, what is your end game? What is your goal?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of stifling these programs and these voices? They also attacked a pride program,
Hmm.
which I'm in Colorado, and Colorado likes to paint itself as very liberal, but there's huge pockets of like conservatism, which is fine.
Right.
But when it gets to this point where you're deciding what programs don't supposedly don't reflect the values of your library system, I have to give you a side eye. Um, and so we've been having big conversations about, are libraries neutral? Are we supposed to be neutral ground? Are we supposed to lean one way or another?
Mm-hmm.
And my response has always been no, we're not supposed to be neutral. We are supposed to fight injustice. We're supposed to fight microaggressions. We're supposed to fight systemic inequalities. And how dare we just kind of sit and not openly fight against these things?
Yeah, and is that really being neutral? Like that's just being justice. If I see someone being racist, I don't say, "Oh, I'm leaning towards the right, so that's not racist," or "Oh, I'm leaning towards the left, that's not racist." No, I see some injustice happening. That that should be right.
Hmm.
It should be.
Right. And it puts the onus on librarians, and other library staff to try to tell people, why this program got canceled
Hmm.
or why this program was renamed or reframed. When I feel like if you're the board members who decided to do it, you should be the ones
Yes.
Right.
letting the community know why it was canceled. Why are you putting it back on us? It's not on us. This is on you.
Hmm.
So I have frustrations when our profession um likes to label itself as liberal. And I'm like, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
And I love the question. I couldn't remember what number you said it, but what is the end game? Like what is? I appreciate that question because, like, if you do take out all of the books or all of the programs that talk about this, what is the end game of that? Is it that we won't still teach what history looked like in America? Or that we won't say that there are so many students of color who don't even get opportunities to read because these books are gone? And so now history is only leaning one certain way?
Hmm.
Yeah,
And libraries have always been founded on equal access to all.
exactly.
And
Right.
so we cannot say that we are promoting equal access to all when we have governing bodies that are actively working against that equal access for all.
Hmm.
For all doesn't just mean the people who the board members find appropriate. Equal access for all doesn't mean the people who look like those on governing bodies.
Right.
The vast majority of public library users are people of color. So if I take my 6 year old into a library and I'm looking for Lola books and I can't find them because one parent has said this is woke BS,
Hmm.
and if I as a librarian remove that book, what am I really saying?
Right. Right. One thing that I've been promoting on Twitter a lot is I saw a graphic and it showed how today's picture books are like 85%
Animals.
animals,
Uh-huh.
and they are portrayed as a protagonist versus like 12% minority. And
And maybe even a little bit less.
how many publishers, and they promote more towards the animal protagonist versus showing ethnicities and minorities as protagonists in picture books. So from that point on, I said, anytime I see a picture book of color where the person is a protagonist, absolutely I'm posting that. And so I could see this part here where you're talking about how if a parent decides and then talks to the governing bodies and says, we don't want that picture book because that picture book is showing division, then what happens to all of the people who want to read a book and they don't see images that look like them? Like, what are we
And
really
what,
doing?
yeah. And what do you say? So for our system, we have tons of teachers who come in and we put together book lists for them to take back to the classroom.
Mm,
So let's say if a teacher comes in to my library and they have a majority underserved population in their classroom, and I give them 10 books, none of which have minority children as the main character, what message does that send?
right.
to those kids.
Right.
And this is like a slippery slope because who says that you're the person who gets to say, "Oh, this book is divisive," or who are you to make that decision?
Right.
It has a profound effect
Yeah.
on everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
Fortunately for public libraries, we don't pull books off the shelves very often. You
Okay.
might see that in very small, rural, white run libraries, but large library systems like ours we don't do that.
Okay.
Um, but it definitely happens at school libraries, and that worries me.
yeah.
That worries me because I mean, my school library was my first introduction to books.
Facts.
Right.
So imagine if I had never. So I mean, just my quick story. When I was in fifth grade, my teacher, she was excellent at picking out books that were very diverse. And so we read Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry
Mm.
by Mildred Taylor. And this
Mm-hmm.
is fifth grade. So normally that book is read sixth, seventh,
Right.
eighth
Middle
grade.
school
Right.
book. Yeah.
Right. So the fact that we were reading that in fifth grade, and it was, in honors, I guess, I don't know,
Okay.
but we were considered advanced, I guess. But so to be exposed to that book in the fifth grade, and then me imagine if so we finished it in class. I loved it. um I went to my library at school and was able to check it out because I
Right.
wanted to read it over and over and over again.
Right.
So imagine if the end of my experience with that book was just giving it back to my teacher and not being able to go to my library and see little Cassie Logan on the cover, a little black girl on the cover. How would that have changed what I grew into?
Right. And you
So this,
nail on the head there. There's been so
it
many
goes
times
so,
where kids see the book in the library at the school and love
yeah,
it. And we say, oh, we don't have the next version. Like, this is a series. We don't have it. But you're like, your local library does. And then to go there and find out that they don't have it because of some
yeah.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
to me, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And we can't promote access, like free and equal access to all, if we're going to nitpick who all is.
Yeah.
All needs to be all,
Right.
and all needs to have equal representation. And so, if we're going to do that, then we need to be on the front lines of fighting against censorship, fighting against all these anti-CRT people who are speaking out of fear and ignorance and
Yes.
not out of actual knowledge of what CRT actually is. So, like, I'm just tired of people using CRT as an excuse or as a way to get out of teaching Black history. But that
Mm-hmm.
could be a whole
Yes.
other podcast
Yes.
Yeah,
episode.
that, yeah. We'll invite you back for that one.
Some of the best educators in the world are people you've never heard of. They may not be on TV or get the National Teacher of the Year awards, but we want to give those teachers their flowers today. We know the sacrifice and the heavy lifting these educators go through daily. With that said, we present Sprout Outs.
All right, Jameka, who would you like to sprout out this episode?
So, first and foremost, I have to sprout out my daughter, Karina. I'm sprouting her out because she has been here like every step of the way of my career. So I had her while I was at Langston. I was a senior. And so at my graduation, she was in the stands. She was a toddler in the stands. She's been with me through undergrad graduation, through working as a single mom, through my master's. I mean, she's been there every single step of the way. And so she's really been my biggest motivation for everything that I do. So I definitely want to sprout her out first. Next, I want to sprout out two Black women who were instrumental to my career. And first is Miss Betty Black, who I met while I was at Langston. She was the first Black librarian that I ever met. And so at the time, she was the director of the Black Heritage Center.
Okay.
And I spent so much of my time there. And so my career could not have been possible without her support, without her love, without her guidance, without her advice. I mean, I just couldn't be where I am without her. And then next, I want to sprout out Miss Terry Nelson, who is I call her my co-conspirator. She's my partner in crime at my current workplace, and she has also been there since I moved to Denver. She's just been right, like stuck to the hip. We are literally arm in arm, like through everything that we go through at work. We're there together. But all the opportunities, the speaking engagements, the presentations, the appearances, I felt like none of that would be possible without her support and without her recommendations. I mean, she really just kind of put her stamp of approval on me, and that opened up a lot of opportunities here in Denver. So I'm super grateful to her for that. And lastly, I just want to sprout out all of the Black librarians who came before me and all of the Black historians. I stand on their shoulders for sure. They went through so much in order for me to have the opportunities that I have and to be able, hopefully, to inspire other little Black kids to become librarians or become historians. I mean, I stand on their shoulders for sure. And I appreciate the ways that they've paved for us. And oh my gosh, they've just been incredible. I mean, Black librarianship is not easy. In this profession is very difficult sometimes. But I think the thing that keeps us here is the potential impact that we have on especially children who we get to come across. So definitely want to sprout out to all the Black librarians that went before me.
Here at See What Had Happened, we believe when one wins, we
We
all
all
win.
win.
And we want to help you win. Jameka, how can others follow you on social media? Or is there anything else you would like to plug?
So you can find me on Facebook, where I'm most active, under Jameka B. Lewis. You don't have to friend request me. You can click the follow button. So you can follow me for all my zaniness and especially my Black History posts, which get the most traction. You can also follow me on Instagram at Jaybella, JAYBELLUH, for all the shenanigans with some history mixed in too. And you can also find, for more information about the library where I work and the incredible things that we're doing there, you can go to denverlibrary.org/history. That will bring up the Blair Caldwell African American Research Library, where our focus is on Black history and culture of the Five Points area of Denver, of the West, and of Colorado. So you can find more information about us there. We're also about to undergo renovation there, so we won't be doing any in-person visits, but we're hoping to have a virtual tour up and ready by the time we close for renovation. For more information about me, you can look at shoutoutcolorado.com and search my name, Jameka Lewis. There's a pretty neat article there that talks about my journey in librarianship. Or, I mean, this is going to sound vain, but you can Google search me at Jameka Lewis Denver, and you'll get tons of articles, presentations. You'll see the appearances I did that were posted on MSN and Yahoo News. So yeah, that's kind of the best way. I also do equity, diversity, and inclusion training. And so if you're interested in that, you can email me at my speaker email, which is Jameka Speaks, JAMEKA SPEAKS
Love it.
Perfect.
And that is not vain at all. Jameka said, I am booked. Google me.
Straight up.
I love it.
And real talk, the conversations that she has is worth the Google. If you can bring Jameka out to your event, your conference, your professional development, your organization's meeting, you need to do that. Wealth of information in a loving way, and the conversations that are difficult and challenging to do, she eases in them with grace, where there's still action steps and deliverables. So you all need to check her out. Real talk.
Google her. Well, we've reached the end of another episode of See What Had Happened. Connect with us on YouTube for previous episodes or where podcasts are located. So don't forget to join us on the next episode of See What Had Happened. Bye.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcast.